with great pleasure that I think we've come to a decision that the book Kyrgyzstan by Parmesh Shahani is actually the winner of the award. Many congratulations, Parmesh. I think it's a book that thought-provoking, it was interesting, it was different. Yeah, thanks. So Parmesh, my first question actually is really about, what triggered this book?
What triggered it? It was a bunch of things. So first, it was the fact that after the 2018, we had a series of, oh, I love that certificate. So cool. So after we had a series of victories in court. Then we had a not so good trans act that followed the year later. But, I have been following this for so many years, and I have been working at Godrej in helping create the change from within, but also in running the culture lab and kind of seeing changes taking place in society from outside. And we kind of made, where we were located, this hub for LGBTQ thought and activism over the years. So I knew the moment this verdict came out, I was very concerned that we don't lose the momentum of this verdict. And how do we translate the spirit of this verdict, which is essentially a verdict that decriminalized LGBTQ people, into action? Because decriminalization is not equality. So I wanted to kind of say, how do we move from you are no longer criminals to you are equal, flourishing members of society to all my community, because I'm gay, I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and I really wanted to live in a much more equal country. So that, in a sense, was the impetus of how do I write a book that, in a way, chronicles and contextualizes all these changes taking place in society, gives queer people a sense of affirmation and pride, gives not queer people a glimpse at the entire landscape, the history, the context of being LGBTQ in Indian society, in the law, in the workplace, gives people data as well as very close to the ground personal stories of lives that have been touched either due to inclusion in the workplace or at home, and also gives people a roadmap in terms of, what is the business case for inclusion, what is the moral case, and if we want to start being inclusive, how do we start, whatever. So while the genesis was the 2018 verdict, in terms of how to write this business book, I know Karthika, my publisher, is watching as well. We had several discussions, and I was very clear that even the form of writing should be a form of queering. So it's not a book which is about queer people. We wanted to write in a way that queers the very idea of a business book. And I use queer as a verb to talk about queerness as possibility. Queerness as a way of seeing beyond what is expected. Queerness as a lens in which you can imagine alternative possibilities and flourish in them, right? So I'm using queerness in its broad, expansive sense. And we said, how do we write, in a sense, a queer masala book, which is Bollywood-like and cinematic in its, in its scale and ambition, but also has that emotional punch. But in the middle of all of that, it's still a business book. How do we rein in this drama and this emotion and all of that when it's going over the top, and kind of dial it back? This is what you can do as business. And it was a blast writing this book. And I'm really, really overwhelmed that since it came out last year, it was one of the first books that came out post-pandemic. The feedback that we've got has been amazing. So, for me, people have appreciated the writing, which is good. But I really appreciate the fact that people are using it as a manual. So the feedback I get from companies saying, we have used the book, we have followed the 6 steps, we have engaged with the ecosystem you've laid out for us, and we have hired queer people in our organizations. To me, that is the biggest validation.
Yeah, that's a remarkable point, actually. The whole thing about hiring people from the community, and actually, the impact on bottom line. I think you've made a very solid case.
Yeah.
With a lot of research in the book, which I think is amazing. I mean, that was an eye opener for me personally, actually.
Yeah.
Because, the kind of statistics you brought to the table was really great.
Yeah.
That's something that's super.
Thank you.
And the other facet also was this interesting part about, things starting at home, for example. And this whole, this paragraph which was really moving. It says sometimes, parents never accept. Okay. And that too is a reality. Sometimes it is better not to come out at all. And then you go on to say what new paradigms are being created. Okay. Old ones are being reimagined. This is the lens I want to look at the future through. That is why this is a hopeful chapter and this is a hopeful book.
Yeah.
I think that is so that hope, I guess, is still there with everybody, because ultimately it's a fundamental human thing, right? And sometimes one wonders why it has to be about three to kind of change the world.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it come more instinctively?
Yeah, I think it. I wish everyone was as enlightened and open-minded as you, Peter. But the reason why, I mean, for you to think that is natural instinctive, right? But we still live in a society in which people are conditioned into heteronormativity, which is why the angle I want to take with this book is of extreme hope. And it's part of a larger, I would say, moment in both, I would say, in non-fiction writing, but it's in also imagining queer futures. Because for all these years, we've heard of enough queer narratives which are about struggle and overcoming. And even with me, sometimes even well-meaning companies, when they invite me, they say, you must have struggled a lot. Tell us about your journey, how you overcame obstacles. But they never ask straight people, tell me about your journey and how you overcame obstacles, assuming that straight people have no obstacles to overcome. And I've seen the same kind of thing happen with, say, women, right? Serena Williams is interviewed after a match, and they will tell Serena, it must be really hard managing parenthood with tennis. But no one asked Djokovic after a match how hard it is managing parenthood with tennis. Both are parents. So I really wanted to create, I didn't want this to be a book about queer struggle. I mean, of course, it's very real. I mean, queer people, we are not equal to straight people in this country, whichever way you look at it. Education levels, mental health, societal discrimination, there's a lot, even the law, right? Because of 377 going away, I'm no longer a criminal, but I'm not equal. I cannot marry my partner right now. We don't have marriage equality. We don't have anti-discrimination. So there's a lot that needs to be done. But I wanted the book to be one of radical hope, and I wanted to show stories. So the chapter that you talk about it's my favorite chapter, and the chapter is called "It's All About Loving Your Children," and it's like it's homage to Karan Johar's "Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum," where I mean the tagline of that was "It's all about loving your parents," and I'm like, no, it's actually all about loving your queer children, actually your children in general. So it's my favorite chapter because in it I talk about various parents who have accepted their queer children and how amazing that is, not just for the children themselves, but also for the parents. And this is the message of this book, right? When you go on a journey of inclusion, it's not only the community that you are including that benefits, you benefit as well, because your mind expands, your horizons expand. You realize that we have so much more in common than we have what is different. And we can live in a scenario where we all can flourish together. So, I mean, absolutely. I wanted the book to be about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems also that, the movement, is kind of more widespread. People are more aware. I mean, I read that part, when you'd gone to Trichy, for example.
Yeah.
And you went to a college and you asked the question, and 9 of those kids didn't have a problem raising their hands.
Yeah.
But that was remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah. And you see this happening at colleges across our country. That's why, I'm 45 right now and I already think I'm old. I think the responsibility of, say, us who are in our 40s and above is to kind of step aside and, young India gets it. It's us who are how do we not create roadblocks for them? So young India understands that inclusion benefits everyone. Young India is not discriminating against people on. So, the thing is that I am, when I said, how many of you are LGBTQ, 9 people raised their hands, right? But it's interesting. None of the professors were raising their hands. So I think, I think we have to work on the older generations because the young, and anyway, the book captures this aspiration of the young Indians, not just Trichy. if you look at our country right now, all the exciting work is happening. Like the best Pride March in our country is Raipur Pride in Chhattisgarh, for example. Some of the most exciting queer organizations are being set up in Manipur and in Tamil Nadu and in Gujarat and like in states all over, right? So there's our champions, our queer champions, Duti Chand, Narthaki Natraj. If you look at all our queer champions who are coming from all across our country. So there are micro revolutions of change taking place all across. And I've tried to capture some of these. And even online, like some of the most exciting LGBTQ projects are Queer Muslim Project, Dalit Queer Project, Chinky Homo Project. There's all these incredible online spaces in which people are talking about multiple intersecting identities. So I've tried to kind of, share this with the world at large and say there is change happening right under our nose. Let's listen, let's look, let's, engage so that we can all benefit.
Yeah, you've done a great job of compiling that actually towards the end of the book. So it's a ready reckoner for anybody who wants to know what's happening and what the state is. And I think just to kind of sum up, at this point, I was quite moved by this paragraph also, which said, how do you feel? It says, I had once asked my partner about being closeted at work and with his siblings and parents while being completely out with me, my friends, my family, and at my workplace. I feel like the superheroes, Krish and Shaktiman. He had replied, it's like I put on a mask, but now I forget which is my real avatar and which is my masked avatar. So I thought that was remarkable. And I think the question, by the time you end reading this book, I think that question gets flipped around. And I think the how do you feel should be actually, to the rest of us all around us. I think that is the question I want to ask.
So how do you feel? Tell me, because you've read it.
Yeah. So I think as I said right in the beginning, it's remarkable because it was an eye opener. And let's face it, at the workplace, somebody like me, for example, doesn't look at this whole discrimination aspect. I mean, we don't take it into account. Yeah, we hear about diversity, inclusion. That's drilled into us in a corporate workspace, and we kind of accept. But I don't know whether that's the norm. With the larger people across the country and across the world, for that matter. So I think that is what needs to change, and that is what, as I said, at the end of the day, we are all humans, and that's what we have to accept.
Yeah.
Wonderful talking to you, Parmesh, and
thank you.
Many congratulations again. All the very best.
Thanks once again.
Yeah. I'll hand it back to Pooja and Ganesh.
Congratulations again. And I'm so glad that you read out a part of the book because it sounded really like the heart of the book too, what he was saying and what, like in that one small thing and how he turned that question back to you. So I think that question is going to stay with all of us about how do you feel and how do you feel about how they felt, right?
Primary aim is to shift the needle. And so there's multiple ways you can include. I mean, again, this is about LGBTQ, but hopefully by reading it, you will understand that, the lessons are for any dimension of inclusion, whether it is caste, whether it is PWD, use it as a manual and really help create a post-COVID new normal in which, we can really create win-win scenarios in which all of us flourish. And it's not just some of us flourish and some of us don't have access to opportunities. So I've written it with that, and I hope people use it with that. And I hope that the recognition of this award is actually translates into action. I mean, that's my hope and prayer.
Absolutely. That's our hope too. That's a very, very powerful message from you, Parmesh. Thank you so much. And audience, please do pick up the book. Please read it. I think there is, honestly, in my opinion, there is no hierarchy to the kind of books that should be read. To each his own, to each their own. See there, Parmesh, did you catch that?
Because we still have 2 minutes as per how we go, and we always have audience questions for every session. Can we really ask anyone, because there's so many people, even the people who've written other books attending, and just in case they have anything to ask of Parmesh, I think it'll be lovely for him to be able to answer. So any questions, anyone, please put it in the chat window. I'm sure he'll be delighted to say something.
And like I was saying, please do that. And like I was saying, while there's no hierarchy and I think to each their own, I would encourage and request every one of us here to pick up this book and read. I think because from time to time, some books I think need to be read more than others. Some themes need to be read more than others. And I think, Parmesh, your book falls under that, must read kind of theme. Absolutely important for our times. So thank you for writing it. By the way, forget winning the award. Thank you for first of all writing it.
Yes.
Yeah, long overdue. Thank you, I think. Thanks a lot. And thanks also to Westland for picking this up, and Kartika is with us now. Thank you so much for bringing this out to the market. Pooja, what next?
So we don't have a question, but yeah, I just want to also point out a very interesting thing that I realized, that inclusion is something that is spoken about often. And I think financial inclusion that came to a lot of movements very late. So I think what makes it very interesting is also that, although the movement, with respect to the LGBTQ, has gained more momentum more recently with these verdicts and whatnot, especially, I'm not talking about the background movement, but how things have come to the forefront, to people, to corporates. It's nice that it's at this stage, or that you've already brought in that aspect of it, which is so important. And yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Right. Aditi has just sent in a couple of comments, last comments. We are in a situation where we can't tell periods or talk about periods, I think, in public or in front of elders, where elders don't encourage it at all. Yes, unfortunately, that's true in India and many other cultures like ours. I think LGBTQ should be normalized, she continues. Absolutely. Yes.
Can I actually respond? I think, Aditi,
Please do.
And Aditi, I think what you're raising is also what, again, like I recognize that we are living now in neoliberal late capitalism. So organizations, corporations, etc., have undue impact and influence on society. And I think those of us who work with or engage with corporations have to understand that we can, the two terms that I use in my book, jugaad resistance and cultural acupuncture, if we can use these to our advantage by working within organizations, we can use the organizations to bring about change, which can then lead to meaningful societal change. So there are many organizations which are now, because of these conversations, Aditi, are normalizing period leave. And I think, one way of bringing these conversations out, I think in other parts of the world, we have conversations at home and then we take them to the workplace. I think in India, it's going to be a mix. For so many issues, we will have conversations in the workplace first and then take the issues at home. So like with LGBTQ, when so many companies say, offer same-sex partnership benefits or gender affirmation surgery or other benefits, it's a chance for employees to go back home and tell their parents that, what, my company is doing this. And, did you know that blah, 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 and to open those dialogues. Likewise, if you work for an organization which offers period leave, you can use that to open conversations so that people's minds can, can expand and the horizons can widen, which is, I think it's very important in today's world for all of us. And that's what I call jugaad resistance. You don't have to be in an NGO or work with the government or be part of a legal team to bring about social change. Use where you are, wherever you are located, to think, what is my realm of influence and how can I bring about that change? And actually use your position well to actually bring about that change. And I think that's when we are going to how do we normalize these things? It's in every interaction that we take is an opportunity to create a better and better India, right? So Aditi, thank you for that question. But embedded in this answer is also what you can actually start doing tomorrow, right? Start having these conversations.
Which society, Parmesh, country, society, region, kind of similar to India, do you think we can pick up lessons from in this context, in this respect? Someone who's done far more in terms of equality, along all dimensions, while having to grapple with pretty much the societal, cultural, fundamental challenges that India is going through.
See, I think there is no, India is pretty unique in terms of its, size, complexity, and histories. And instead of, I am a big advocate of picking up things from anywhere in the world which are good. If we have to look close, we can look at Nepal. which, you know, when it got a new constitution, enshrined LGBTQ rights in its constitution itself. But my point is, we can look at our own histories, because, you know, homophobia as an idea is something that the British brought to us. We, you know, India of, you know, whether it was ancient India, medieval India, Mughal India, whichever part of how you want to define the subcontinent and its histories,
right,
has always been plural and inclusive. The British brought a Victorian homophobic mindset. And of course, we know about Macaulay and how the British wanted to create an elite class of Indians who then kind of absorbed this homophobia. And it's not just with LGBTQ, it's the same with the criminal. What the British did not understand, they criminalized. So they couldn't understand LGBTQ, so they created 377. They created the Criminal Tribes Act, etc., because they could not understand that people are nomadic, etc. Also, I think it's the British, they wanted to take away people's properties and things like that, right? But so, I mean, we just need to look at our own history and past, and look at how we have been throughout history, plural, accommodating, inclusive. So I'm very clear, to be a good Indian means to be inclusive. To be a good parent means to accept your child. If you are not accepting your children for who they are, then you're not being a good Indian according to our traditions and culture. If you
traditional ideals, yes.
Yeah. So we only need to look at our own past. And, you know, we are a civilization which is thousands of years old. You know, the recent past is a blip. So if we can understand that we come from an inclusive space in general, I think it's not going to be that difficult. And of course, practices we should borrow from everywhere, all across the world, right? Because we live now in globalization, where we should take the best from wherever we are in the world.
I think that's something Ruth Vanita also really always tries to remind you of, that we don't have to only look at the world for this, but it's there in our own history. And so it's more natural anyhow.
Thank you, Parmesh, for that response. Thank you. Makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. So this was the last day of Bangalore Business Literature Festival, and I think it couldn't have ended with, you know, on a better note. And yes, so welcome back to next year. And obviously you can follow us for our monthly conversations. But thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for applauding our book. I'm especially excited about the fact that we had some of the other authors from, you know, the other books who also came and showed their, you know, appreciation. So thank you. And thank you so much, Parmesh.
See you, everyone. Thanks a lot. And until next year.
Until next year. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We're signing off. Thanks. Bye-bye.